A phylogenetic tree such as this one can be very useful in determining how closely two species are related. So let's talk about a few important aspects of the tree. It's important to understand that the word nodes on the tree represent common ancestors. So these portions here are the nodes. The red lines on the tree, indicated here, are shared traits that each of these species have. So it's important to make sure that we don't make the mistake of thinking that these traits, such as hair or forelimbs, are what cause the species to separate. These separations, or speciation events, as we see as they branch here or here, they are caused typically by environmental factors. So to identify the most recent common ancestors of two species, we start at the tips of the tree and trace back the branches through the tree until we reach a shared node. So to find how primates and dinosaurs are related, we start at the ends here and trace it back to one of these green nodes. So we find that this is that common ancestor. Species that share a more recent common ancestor, such as primates and rodents, whose common ancestor is here, or crocodiles and dinosaurs here, are more closely related than we would say crocodiles and primates, which the common ancestor is here. So let's look at a possible question. Is a crocodile more closely related to a rodent or an amphibian? So you might think that a crocodile looks more like an amphibian, so it's more closely related. But let's go to the tree and trace back to common ancestors and find out. So we can trace back our crocodiles and rodents and find that they have a common ancestor or a node here. As we look at crocodiles and amphibians, we see that their common ancestor is all the way back here. So from this we learn that crocodiles are more closely related to rodents than amphibians. Let's look at the next question. Are rabbits more closely related to primates or crocodiles? Go ahead and pause the video and take a minute and see if you can trace this and find out on your own. So as we go back to the common ancestor, we see that rabbits here come down the tree and connect with crocodiles here at their most recent common ancestor there. We can also look and see that rabbits and primates connect here. So their common ancestor is more recent, and so rabbits are more closely related to primates than they are to crocodiles. Let's take a look at one more. Are ray-finned fish more closely related to amphibians or birds? Take a second to find this out. We can see that ray-finned fish and amphibians are right next to each other on this tree, which might lead some to believe that they are closely related. But let's trace this back to the common ancestor they share. So we can see that their common ancestor is at this node here. Now let's trace back birds and see how it's related. So we see that birds also share the same common ancestor as ray-finned fish and amphibians. What this means is that ray-finned fish are equally related to both amphibians and birds. Let's look at one last question. So if we discover a new species that has a vertebrae, bony skeleton, and 4 limbs, where would we place this new species on the tree? Pause the video and take a minute, see if you can find out on your own. To answer this question, let's find these traits on the tree. So the first is a vertebrae, which we see here, next a bony skeleton, and then 4 limbs. So our new species would branch off here and would go up, as you see. So we can squeeze this in here, these new species, in between the ray-finned fish and amphibians. It's important to realize that adding a new species to the tree does not affect the existing relationships. We didn't add any new ancestors, and so as we trace species back, they'll still end up at the same most recent common ancestor.